Scientists study kind of the various levels of how living things are organized. And it can be something as small kind of as the like microscopic or submicroscopic level all the way up to kind of the size of the earth. And at each level, you almost create a whole new field within biology. You have cell biologists, you have molecular biologists, you have population, community biologists, ecosystem biologists, and so on. So we're going to kind of just basically look at each kind of level of how life is organized, starting from the small, going all the way to kind of the large. So in this figure, you can see, a molecule of chlorophyll, and it's pointing out, that the molecule of chlorophyll is actually is composed of smaller parts of atoms, and those atoms are fit together to make a molecule. And the molecule, kind of biochemists would call this a macromolecule, meaning large molecule. And biologists really tend to look at macromolecules more than probably anything else. If we're talking about like chemistry, but some people look at the macromolecule level. But these macromolecules are put together, and if it's in a very complex cell, we would be making something called an organelle. Organelles are kind of titled. The word means small organ. So when these were discovered, eventually somebody said, hey, these look like little organs, kind of like the organs in your body. Here's a chloroplast, and it's composed of many different macromolecules, one of which is that chlorophyll. But there are other ones like proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, all kind of a part of this. And if we take multiple organelles, we can fit them together into a cell. Now, not all cells have organelles. Some are fairly simple, but some are fairly complex. Here's a plant cell. It's a little bit more complicated. It's got, you can see the chloroplasts that are in here, and you really can't see much else other than maybe where the boundary is with the membrane and the cell wall. But a cell is considered the first level that is on this kind of scale that's living. Everything below the cellular level is not considered living. Even the organelles are not considered living. But cell and on up, they're considered living. So the cell, this is what I would call a functional unit of life. It has all the life's properties. So if you take multiple cells and piece them together to do a common function, you get what's called a tissue. In this photograph, it's an electron micrograph. We have two tissues. We have on the right, we have the epidermis of a leaf. So these cells, this would be one type of tissue. There are all these different types of cells are kind of put together to kind of keep moisture into the leaf so it doesn't dehydrate. On the left, you have what's called the spongy mesophyll, and that's used to do photosynthesis within the leaf. All right, so both of them are two types of tissues. Each of them have their own kind of separate function. And then you piece together all those tissues and you get an organ. So you can think of the leaf of a plant as an organ. And all those tissues work together to do a common function. In this case, it's to do photosynthesis or to make carbohydrates for the plant to kind of grow and function. And if you have a fairly complicated organism, you could have a number of organs that are put together, or sometimes we think in the human perspective that we have organ systems. they're all put together to make an organism. Not all organisms are multicellular. Some are just one cell. Some almost resemble a tissue. Some might resemble, something in between, maybe a tissue and something with organ systems. It all depends what you're studying. But an individual living thing is an organism. And like I said, it could just be one-celled organism or a multi-cell. Here we've got a flowering plant. And if we took all those flowering plants, same species, put them in the same place and same time, we get a population. So kind of the ingredients to a population, it's the same place, the same species, same place, same time. Place and time can vary. We could say all the people in the state of Illinois could be a population, or all the people in the state of Illinois from the years 1900 to 2020. Okay. So it's sometimes some of that space and time is how we define it. If we take and add in an extra species, we get a community. So here's a picture of a community. You see two different types of flowering plants. Looks like you've got some grass and then trees in the background, but then you also have the animals, the deer. So there's multiple species in that community. You yourself are a community. I forget how much bacteria actually make up us, how much bacteria you have living in you, in your digestive tract, on your skin. It's a couple pounds actually. Something to think about. You also have small arthropods that are crawling around you. You'll never see them unless you have a microscope. They're in your eyelashes. They're sucking the juice out of them, living their best life, I guess. Once again, something to think about. But the fact that you're host to multiple species makes you a community. If we add in a non-living environment, we get an ecosystem. So here you've got kind of almost looks like a mountainous, almost looks like a prairie / forest. But this has moisture, precipitation, oxygen, soil types. These are all non-living sorts of things that contribute to the ecosystem. You have aquatic ecosystems where we're looking at the pH of a pond and the dissolved oxygen in a pond. And these are all non-living things that contribute to an ecosystem. And then, also with the living that we've been talking about. Now, our last one is the biosphere. And the biosphere is defined as the area on Earth where you find living things. And I can't think of any place on Earth where life isn't present. You have really extreme areas where life is present, like down in the depths of the Marianas Trench, where it's cold and pressure is very high. You have the geysers in Yellowstone National Park, which are extremely hot. They're boiling, and you have bacteria that live in there. Now, I'm not saying there's a spot on Earth where life is not present. I just don't know of any. And years ago, I mentioned this. A student almost took it as a challenge, and I think they searched for a week or two, and they just could not. With their research, they could not find any mention, at least on kind of on the surface of the Earth, there is crust where life isn't found. This is not a challenge. Don't waste your time. But if you do find it, please tell me because I'm curious. Anyway, this is the kind of the hierarchy of biological organization, and people study life on these different levels. People actually kind of are starting to study where life could be outside of our planet, or they have been doing this for a while. And it's even got to the part where they're identifying planets and other solar systems where, life could potentially exist. So there you have it.